Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for today is servant leadership. And, as Amber and I brainstorm around, what we want the theme to be each quarter, not to mention each month, we felt that this was so aligned with kind of the philosophy that we really want to dedicate 2021 to. And, that's being a purpose-driven leader. And one aspect of being a purpose-driven leader is a term that was born many, many years ago by a philosopher and a psychologist by the name of Robert Greenleaf, and it's servant leadership. And the reason why this topic, was inspiring to Amber and I, but incredibly relevant given the times that we're living in, is that it sort of takes a different look at how leaders should lead within today's culture and environment in order to make the most relevant and impactful changes. Historically, and I'm sure many of you can attest, it's been sort of task-oriented leaders and autocratic cultures, do as we say do. But now it's becoming much more important because it definitely is an employee's market, and employees and associates are looking to join organizations where leaders practice what they preach in terms of what their values are, and really are investing and spending time and effort in making sure that the cultures are there to make your workday fulfilling and satisfying. That's really what it boils down to. So in essence, what Amber and I are going to walk you guys through today are sort of 10 principles of what makes up a servant leader. And again, we want to underscore that the way we define leadership in everything we talk about has little, if anything, to do with one's position. It's really about your set of behaviors, how you act. You can be an individual contributor. You can be a leader within your home, even within academic, whether you are a professor or an administrator. We're all leaders in the way that we interact with people. So servant leadership is applicable in that regard. So do you want to put up, Amber, our list of the 10 sort of principles of leadership, servant leadership?
Yes.
So as Amber is pulling that up, we're going to kind of, as we said, walk you through each one of these, and we're going to go through them pretty quickly because most of you are going to be very familiar with it. But again, we want you to sort of infuse it, take it in, because we want this webinar today to be very interactive and participatory. So we're going to be asking questions relevant to any one of these principles, because we want to hear from you how you're either applying these principles, or if you're not, how you can intend to do that and bring that into your work environment.
Yes. Yes, yes. All right. So are we ready to participate? We are not talking at you. We are talking with you. And as we are all purpose-driven professionals, of course, a part of living in our purpose is being intentional. And so this is guided to help us to be more intentional about the way we are showing up. And as Michelle mentioned, leadership is not just the position that we are in an organization. We can be leaders in so many of the spaces of our lives that we occupy. So our top and first principle to servant leadership is empathy. And so as servant leaders work to understand and empathize with others, being aware and trying to understand how others feel and what their concerns are and their needs are, even though they may not feel the same way, it's a key attribute of a servant leader. Evaluating situations from another's perspective is important, as it helps to build trust within a manager-employee relationship, or within a mother-daughter relationship, or within a husband-wife relationship, or any other relationship at that. And so with empathy, a huge part of our being able to empathize with others is putting our own feelings to the side and putting ourselves in someone else's shoes, and not just looking at things from our own perspective, but broadening our lens. And so if any of us have ever been in a disagreement with someone, you go into that disagreement, and what are you both trying to do? You're both trying to get each other to see things. You're trying to get the other person to see things from your perspective. But what usually happens, we get so wrapped up in talking and trying to communicate what we're feeling, that we're not listening as well. A huge part of being empathetic is active listening and actually hearing what the other person is saying without putting our own interpretations on this. Michelle does this really, really well. Michelle, I love when we talk, you always you go around and you say, okay, so what I hear you saying is, and then you recap that. Will you just speak to us, Michelle, about empathy? And I think all of you all know that Michelle is a executive talent coach. And so she does a lot of executive coaching with organizations. And so for some of the leaders that you've worked with, will you share with us just a bit around their listening, what you're doing with their listening and developing their empathy?
Sure, sure. I'll do it briefly because we've got so many of these to kind of go through. But yeah, your point is well taken, Amber, in that when we think about empathy, it is the ultimate definition of what one needs to exhibit in order to have high emotional intelligence. We are working within environments now where, being people oriented is very important. The task, the business objectives, obviously is what is going to help sustain a business, but you're going to have low performance and low productivity if a manager or you as a leader, even as a coworker, aren't sort of plugging in and paying attention to the feelings and the emotions that your coworkers or your direct reports or even your leaders may have. So empathy, there's an expression that says, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that is the ultimate essential definition of empathy. It's the caring aspect. We've gone through such a tumultuous time, 2020 into 2021, given the pandemic, the social and racial injustices, what's happening in our political landscape. I think we're certainly as a country and as a society really sort of compromised as it relates to empathy. But, we can now shift and ensure that we are listening, paying attention, and not even to what others may be saying, but to what body language tells us. When we go back into an office environment, a lot of companies now are going to be opening up starting the fall, perhaps with kind of a hybrid working relationship. And we're now going to be interacting with people in a way that we haven't for the last year and a half. And, people are carrying a lot of stress, a lot of health issues. People have lost loved ones. And, when we ask someone, how are you doing? And they just flippantly respond with, I'm fine, that may not necessarily be the case. So when we're practicing empathy, we're really paying attention and intuitively checking in with, whether or not we don't see a bright smile or, their tone is not what it used to be. So that's ultimately what empathy is. And this is an invitation for each of us as we go through these 10 principles to look to apply it starting today.
All right, we'll jump back into our screen share for number 2.
So the second one is humility, right? This may not necessarily be something that a lot of us can do. Humility is kind of the first cousin to vulnerability. Showing humility as a servant leader is to be transparent, to really, open oneself and be authentic in what they say and how they act. Humility promotes others first. When we talk about team, it's not the I, there's no I in team. Humility is they support and give recognition and validation for what team members are doing, whether it's, an update at a staff meeting, acknowledgement. Humility means the leader goes last, so to speak. So it's really demonstrating to others that you are humble. And it's not about one's position power, so to speak. It's not ego driven, it's spirit driven in the sense that, you're showing vulnerability, humility, and enabling the focus and the spotlight to be on others as opposed to oneself.
And for number 3, we have self-awareness, which, in my opinion, in order to be humble and truly come from a place of humility, our self-awareness helps us with that. Our humility could seem to some in the older uh, uh, mindset, humility could have been looked at as a weakness, but we're recognizing that it is actually a strength. And with our self-awareness, when we're able to demonstrate a higher level of emotional intelligence, we don't have to lean on our egos in order to get things done. Our emotional intelligence is a key leadership skill that we have. And so, for those of you who are on, actually, I'll pose a question to you. How many of you have taken any assessments to understand or to gain more self-awareness? Have you done any of the DISC or any of the personality types to understand yourself better or to even understand your teams better? So that's not hypothetical. I'm actually asking that question if anyone wants to weigh in.
I'm doing that every day.
Oh,
It kind
But
of
have you
changes in
actually,
life.
so Victor, because we actually see Vanessa said yes as well. But Victor, you say you do it every day, but have you actually taken a survey so that it tells you what your level of self-awareness or emotional intelligence is?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what, but I've never believed in those type of tests. But
Say that
because
again?
who's writing the test?
You are.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, did I believe in that? I could take that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to offer, Amber and I are certified in a number of these psychometric tools, which speaks to kind of what your behavioral style is, what your emotional intelligence hierarchy is. So if any of you are possibly interested in taking an assessment, Amber will put the email address. You can put what is it, hello at 39 Quartz.
Sure.
And
For a
we can,
second, I think Victor was asking like who is actually writing the test, meaning who is setting those parameters. Is that what you meant, Victor?
Yes, exactly.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
and
who says
I've always,
who is emotionally intelligent or isn't, or is,
yeah,
has the ability to listen or doesn't.
I've
Well,
always seen those as too much power. I've always said like, who's taking these
Say that
tests?
again?
Where is it coming from? These people that write the tests. No offense to whoever does it, I apologize, but I just never feel like I don't think just one person could write that test without
Well,
having.
I'll explain it now. Now that Desi has helped me identify exactly what your question is. So think about it this way, and I'm thinking specifically about, because I'm certified in emotional intelligence, so use that one as an example. And there is a organization, it's called Target Training International, which is a host of researchers and scientists and psychologists that create the questions, all right, because they're not creating the report, they're creating the questions, and given algorithms based on how you answer certain questions, they're able to assess exactly what your behavioral style is or what your emotional intelligence hierarchy is. So it's highly impossible. I mean, I've done thousands of these assessments, and there are a lot of people on a spectrum of from skeptic to I'm a firm believer, but it's hard, if not impossible, to trick it. Nor is it profiling anyone so that it's not manipulative in that way. It's quite illuminating, quite honestly.
I'm just super fan guy. I've never actually done anything like that. I do a lot of self-awareness, but like it's a little different. But
Yeah,
that
I
right
think
there,
that with the self-awareness, so you do self-awareness from the inside, and what the assessments help to do is help you to look at a different perspective of like the outside. It's almost like saying I do therapy and you just do personal therapy without a therapist. So the assessments, like for instance, one of the assessments that I love to use with people to build their self-awareness is the strengths. And someone mentioned strengths finders. I use the VIA character strengths and helping them to recognize what their top character strengths are, because areas, we can often lean on our strengths, and it gives us more confidence in place of what we might consider what our weaknesses are, where we're able to lean on our strengths and build on our strengths. And that gives us confidence in the way that we show up. And it also allows us to be aware of other people's strengths. And so where you may have someone on your team who's not so strong in an area, when you know the area that they are strong in as a servant leader, then you're leaning in and you're saying, okay, you're recognizing that they might not be as strong in a certain area, but here are the areas where you are strong, and let's lean on those. Let's give you position, or let's give you projects that are based in your strengths that help to bring out and to empower you, as opposed to highlighting your deficits or something that may make you feel insecure because it's not where you are as strong. And what happens in those situations often is that when we're able to lean on our strengths, some of our weaknesses, we get the confidence, we build that confidence muscle within our areas of strength. And so that our areas where we're not as strong, we become more confident to start to improve and master those areas as well. And, you know, as we talk about just servant leadership, like that is so much of what we do, of serving the people that we're working with, to help them to bring out their highest potential, as opposed to demeaning them in the ways that, you know, you can watch old movies and see how bosses used to be, and the whole paradigm shift of where we're going now in organizations to being more servant-based.
Yeah, I've always run my business, my practice that way. Just whatever my client needs, and just make sure I focus completely on that, and then find a way, a solution for them. So that's been my goals as a salesperson from when I first started sales. Just take care of the customer, whatever else will work out. Don't think about anything else.
Yeah. Victor, I'm going to ask you, when you do speak again, I'm going to address some of the comments in the chat, but when you do speak again, ask you to just turn your volume up. It's a bit hard to hear you. I think we're all kind of struggling to hear you a bit. But Venice, we just want to give you a moment to weigh in before we move on to number 4. You are an INTJ from the Strength Finders assessment. And so recognizing that about yourself, how has that served you as a leader, or served you just in life or in your position within the organizations you've worked with?
And wait, I just want to say before you answer, because a lot of people may not understand what the I, the N, the T, and the J stands for. Because I think it's Myers-Briggs, isn't it Myers-Briggs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is Myers-Briggs. Well, I think it's really important. I was working in a bubble for 5 years. I was at Disney, and I had a job that I liked doing. I was working in the legal department, so I was working with attorneys. I was working with people who were under a lot of stress and tension, and always having to meet deadlines every day. Not the most pleasant people to work with. I love attorneys, but they do have their issues. And once I left that job and started trying to find something new and different to do, I didn't know who I was after being, in kind of a bubble for 5 years, working in one department. So once I got out into the world, and I had to figure out where I was going to find my next best fit career opportunity, I really had to figure out who I was. And so I did start taking all of those assessments, and I didn't know my strengths. I didn't know my weaknesses. And even though I was working with those differences for those 5 years, that environment and that culture accepted me for who I was. But when you go out into the world and you're trying to interview for a job posting that has like 20 things, and half of those things are your weakness, you're in a little bit of trouble. So I did start taking the career assessments, and then I realized it was just a very eye-opening experience. And I am a true introvert, which I believe is what the IN stands for. But I've learned that when I was having to look for a job, I had to figure out how to become an extrovert. And then I discovered that there's a middle in between the intro and the extrovert, and that's
Called ambivert.
And that's exactly who I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Me too, Venice. I'm Amber, and I'm an ambivert. All right. So we're going to move on to the next, but I did just drop in the chat a link to my website, Quartz Wellness Collective, the free resources there. And there you can take a free VIA character strengths assessment, the one that I mentioned. Michelle also has just so many assessments, much more rich than that one. It goes much more in depth. And so you feel free to contact us if you're interested in taking any of the assessments. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again for us to move on. And
yeah, I'm putting my website in there as well, and a write-up on the assessments that I'm certified in as well, if any of you are curious.
And so for those who are on Facebook and can't see, will you just share with them your website and that so that they know how to find you as well?
Sure, it's intoactioncoaching.com.
Okay, you spelled it wrong on the link, Michelle.
Did I?
Yeah,
That's
because
what
I was
happens when
hitting
I
the
don't have
link.
my glasses on.
Oh, the T is not there. Yeah, so just add the T for into.
Oh.
Yeah, I got you.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Michelle, you want to take, this is one of your favorites, number 4.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when we think about emotional intelligence kind of has 2 parts. It's the interpersonal, which is how we're interacting with others, our social skills, our empathy, but it's also intrapersonal in the sense of how we are relating to ourselves. So the slide just got really large. The previous principle, number 3, that Amber was just making reference to, self-awareness, is actually an element of EQ. But from a servant leadership perspective, again, these are all incredibly related. Emotional intelligence, in a lot of instances, trumps intellect. There are a lot of incredibly smart people in the world with very high IQs, but their inability to manage and regulate their own emotions with frustration, anger management, so when you are, as a servant leader, adapting to high emotional intelligence and practicing it, it's the ability, I call it, use the acronym RUM. We recognize, understand, and manage our emotions in a way that our emotions are not managing us. I like, in a lot of the seminars that I do on this topic, speak to, all it takes are missteps in the morning. Alarm doesn't go off. When we were commuting to work, we get into the car, we realize we don't have enough gas. We've got to stop and get gas, or maybe we have a flat tire, or we're on the highway and all of a sudden we run into a traffic snarl, a traffic jam. There are a series of things that can happen throughout the course of our day that can really derail us. And when we're not able to manage our emotions, they can just take us out. And not to mention our inability to resolve our emotional state from unfavorable to favorable can spill over in how we are interacting with people. Cranky, wanting to snap their heads off, being impatient, getting an email and responding to it angrily without, recognizing, wait a minute, let me just center myself. So emotional intelligence is key as a servant leader because it becomes imperative for someone to really be self-aware enough to recognize whenever they're feeling unfavorable emotions, how do they manage it and process so that it's not derailing their day.
I had an argument with someone about emotional intelligence. And so
Chronic.
What was it?
And I think it's a relevant thing to bring up in this particular context because we're talking about servant leadership. And so in the context of leadership, I think it's an important sort of reference to make. And so the debate was with my nephew, and he had read a few things about emotional intelligence, and we were referencing a particular family member. And then also he had brought up Hitler. The person who had written the piece had said that Hitler is a person who has emotional intelligence. And he also referenced this other family member. And I said, I don't think it's the same thing. I said, I believe strongly that what you're talking about is the ability to manipulate people's emotion, like having enough sort of awareness to be able to manipulate people's emotions and fears and being able to play on them and use those to be able to control. I said, and I don't believe that that's the same thing as emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence also has the component of sort of a responsibility to use that ability to tap into people's emotions for good, not for evil. I don't believe that it's the same thing. But you can correct me if I'm wrong. I was very insistent that he was wrong in saying that this particular family member and Hitler had emotional intelligence. I said, I just don't believe it's the same thing. I really believe that emotional intelligence not only is about tapping into emotions, but also being responsible in the ways in which you use that.
No, you were spot on, Desi. Yeah. I mean, they in whatever way they were defining Hitler having high emotional intelligence, the way you responded to, he was able to assess the fears and the insecurities and manipulate their emotions to his benefit, which is the polar opposite, obviously, of what a servant leader is and would do. But certainly it's very, very low emotional intelligence. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, as
I would even argue that it's low emotional intelligence. That's what actually I said.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
It's misused emotional intelligence, because there takes an amount of intelligence to be able to do that. But it's like prayer. If you use prayer, it could be very powerful in a positive direction. However, if you get on the dark side of prayer and start practicing the dark side, you can put that energy out in a negative way that affects people in a negative way. I think it's kind of similar and with emotional intelligence and how we use it, how we put it to use, because I actually understand what your nephew is saying. You just, want to put your rose colored shades on and hope that people don't become manipulative in that way. But there is an amount of intelligence that comes into manipulation and recognizing, so what we'll move into next for number 5 is persuasiveness. And so we can persuade people on a positive or a negative end. You know what I mean? I guess I'm trying to say that it really just depends on how you use it.
But, and I just want to underscore, because Desi said it and you just validated. So we all have emotional intelligence. So even with your family member who is making reference to Hitler having emotional intelligence, yes, we all have it, but there's a hierarchy of low to high, right? And it was, absolutely, from a Hitler perspective, any, sociopath for the most part has very, very low, because when you think about self-awareness, the ability to regulate one's emotion, empathy, how they're relating, someone who is a sociopath or, hurts people, they have emotional intelligence, but it's incredibly low. So, yeah.
It's more like emotional manipulation. I think there's the difference. Either you're going to use it or you're going to manipulate someone.
Yeah, I would even go so far as to say that it isn't even emotional intelligence. I would say that it's predatory behavior.
Manipulation, yeah. I agree. Okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to bring it down, but
No.
But in terms of leadership, I think it is important to understand the responsibility that you have to use your ability to be persuasive, to tap into people's emotions, because that's what a predator, like if you think about someone who grooms children who, are predators, they do have the ability to find vulnerability and tap into vulnerability. So there is some quotient that is there, but I would argue that it is an intelligence.
I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I love this back and forth. All right. So let's move into number 5. And this actually, I think, takes us right into 5, as I mentioned, persuasiveness. And so, and just thinking about, before I go into anything on persuasiveness, thinking of yourself and like, how can someone persuade you or motivate you to do something? Well, Michelle, again, this is another one of the Michelle-isms that she always says is the WIFM, the what's in it for me. And so I've been reading the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And one of the number one principle that they start with is figuring out how to attach what it is that you want from someone else to something that they want for themselves. And this is a key way of motivating them, of motivating. So if you're looking at it as a team, you're motivating a team with the why, not just with the what. And helping them to understand what their attachment is to that why. And so we, in the past paradigm, there was this, forcing employees or forcing people, using your power just to force people to do what it is that you want them to do. But just recognizing now as we evolve that we are able to understand what the actions that we're asking for how they can be attached to what our teams, or what again, this is in work and out of work. This could be what our children, if you're trying to motivate a child to succeed in school, what's in it for them? Why do you want to get good grades in that math class? Because maybe you will need to use those skills in the profession that you want, that you're seeking to get into eventually. And so the WIFM, the what's in it for me, used in a positive way, is a very powerful tool in servant leadership.
Yeah, this actually even speaks to kind of what Desi and Victor have been referencing, that pervasiveness, not to be confused with coercion or manipulation, right? It's like the term power. It's how you use it. And you're right, Amber, the WIIFM. It's when we're practicing servant leadership, we are highly focused on what's in it for the other person. And tapping into, again, how we can express in our communication, our point of view, our way of thinking, but taking into consideration, others' needs, wants, and desires. Yeah, that's the ultimate art of persuasiveness. Trustworthiness. Yeah, this is a high order, to be trustworthy is to act with integrity, and taking accountability. And as a servant leader, it's walking the talk, expressing the, mea culpa if necessary, my apologies. It's doing what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. And when there's a breakdown, then you clean it up and you articulate, and don't try to kind of gloss over it or, ignore it. So, to be worthy of trust, one needs to exhibit that the ability to have people put their faith and their trust in you, and to not be disappointed. Even though we're spirits having a human experience, we're still having these human experience, and we're going to make mistakes and missteps, and that's okay. It's to be expected. This is not about perfection, but when a mistake is made, in whatever fashion, it's being able to apologize and be accountable and be responsible for the action, and just kind of cleaning it up. That is how we practice trustworthiness.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And let's even look at our leadership of the country and what we've gone through and what happens when we don't trust our leaders, and how does that really show up? Look at Desi, come on, Desi, weigh in, because how it shows up when, so we're talking about the presence of trustworthiness, but also recognizing what happens in the absence of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so in positive psychology, we like to say that, like, the trust equation, it says that an individual's trustworthiness is equal to their credibility, their reliability, and intimacy, all divided by their level of self-orientation. So if you look at it as if it's an equation, and so that self-orientation, if we're very high oriented towards self, then it takes our numerator down. If our denominator is higher, it reduces our numerator, right? And so this goes back to what we're talking about within servant leadership, of being more other people matter, other people focused, makes you more trustworthy of an individual. 45, as we'll call him, was very about himself, about his people, about making money. And we won't get into politics, but that made him a lot less trustworthy to the people that didn't feel like they were in his inner circle, because they felt like they were the outside and he was just concerned with the inside, right? So just giving us some context and trustworthiness. Before, I think we have like 2 minutes for anyone's comment. If anyone wants to comment on any of the last couple of principles that we've shared to servant leadership.
I would offer this up that in the example of 45, I think that that really low bar of leadership and sort of moral aptitude, not only I think it doesn't even just demoralize sort of the general fabric of the position and the leadership, but it also, even people who don't trust or believe or buy into anything that he may say, it also creates a weakening of the fabric of their resolve as well. I would say, for example, I think people who, let's talk about the vaccine and the pandemic. I think people who were even in a position who were suffering as a result of the pandemic, who may have even been amenable to taking the vaccine, I think even their resolve was diminished by the presence of a person who was not even willing to acknowledge that it was real. And then you couple that with him wanting credit for finding a vaccine for a virus that he said wasn't even real. The confusion around the messaging, the dismissal of the importance of recognizing that the virus was real. I think even people who may have had hope, who may have believed in a vaccine, who may have been willing to participate in the measures of public safety, I think even it was diminished amongst them as well. So it not only emboldened people who did not want to believe in the virus or the vaccine, it diminished the quality of communication amongst people who rejected him anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So even people who didn't believe in him still were diminished by that lack of moral compass.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Desi, just to follow up, I think there's also a lot of people out there that were awakened and inspired. So let's not by all the negativity that he brought and what he brought to our leadership. I think it opened up a lot of people to tend to looking within themselves for leadership. So you got both ways. You got both ways.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he even took credit for the fact that more women were running for office, which was certainly to thwart his efforts, but he even took credit for that. So surely people were inspired. Yes.
Humility may not have been top of that list, but yeah. All right. So I'll just move us along into number 7 in respect of time. So our number 7, I'm going to, am I sharing with you all? There we go. Is commitment to the growth of others. If you are working with generation, I'm the oldest millennial. If you're working with millennials, if you're working with Generation Z, they are expecting for their organizations that they work with to be committed to their growth. And so there has definitely been this shift again in what their expectation is in the leadership. They're working more on purpose, and within their purpose, these are the things that we threw around and talked about, or that their parents talked about, and now they're embodying this, and it guides their expectations. And so commitment to others' growth, traditionally, and I can't even say traditionally, but you would find that it's more likely that there's executive coaching than that there's coaching for people on the lower levels in the organization. That there are companies that, when you recognize like a company like Google, who actually commits to the growth of their employees, that they have higher levels of retention, because there's this expectation that I'm not just here to serve you, but I should be getting, they're back to the WIFM, the what's in it for me. And so as a servant leader, when we are able to have commitment to others' growth and show that we're ready, willing to put our money where our mouths are, and bring in programming, coaching, workshops to help them to help to develop the talent, then they are much more likely to show up and help you to reach the bottom line, you know. But just recognizing that there's been a major shift, that this was not as expected in the past, but this is a part of servant leadership and what's expected in this new age of work, especially now coming back from COVID. You're going to have a lot of people coming back into the office and looking for support and feeling like if they don't have it, then you don't care about them and they would better be fit somewhere else.
Yeah, no, you raise a really good point. I mean, we are definitely experiencing a transformational shift in terms of what organizations are now, or at least the progressive ones, are now willing to do. It used to be employee engagement, which is, you know, how productive and how highly performing can you be? That's still important because business objectives need to be accomplished, but now it's transitioned to employee fulfillment. How can we be an employer of choice? And to Amber's point, how can we make sure that what programs we have in place are contributing to our associates' growth? So, you know, whether it's coaching that they have internally offering, or they bring in external coaches, whether it's mentoring programs, sponsorship programs, this is what's on the rise. It's keeping, you know, my agency really busy, because organizations are now willing to invest time and money to make sure that they're retaining their best talent, and by making sure that they're contributing to their growth, and making also their senior leaders and executives within positions where they have a lot of line responsibility, direct reports, that their leaders are spending quality time coaching and developing their employees. You know, not just around checking the task or how the project status might be, but what is it that you need? If you're going to stay here in this organization, you know, what's your career plans and how can I help you get there? So yeah, that's all of what a servant leader is and does.
Okay, going into number 8.
Focus on community building, right? So this speaks a lot to what's happening around sort of social responsibility. Organizations are focusing, in businesses, large to small, it's all about values. It's not just about profits and earnings, you know, that's important, but with the business that we're in, how can we best serve the community? How can we best serve our constituents? So it's a focus on, you know, how, if my business is local or regional or national or even global, am I aware of what our sort of ecosystem is? Who do we have in our network? What is it that is needed? And how can, let's say, for example, sustainability or recycling to sort of offset what's happening with global warming. Organizations are looking at external initiatives and looking to see what can our role be in bringing about sustainability, bringing about a solution to global warming or poverty, or you know, whatever the case may be. So that's sort of the focus is on the external commitment and contributions that organizations and leaders within those organizations can place their focus on.
Okay. And next we have, and so we're rolling through these so we can leave some time at the end for conversation. We just got 10 and this is our 9th one. So for number 9, we have the ability to empower others. This is one of my favorite areas. And what I know about both Michelle and myself as coaches is that we never look to have people be too dependent on us. You're empowering them, empowering the people that we work with tools in order for them to recognize the power that they have within themselves to get things done, to be who they want to be. And so with servant leaders, you know, with servant leaders, that's a part of that servant leadership, is empowering your staff. And at the opposite, I think, would be like, that type of person that always complains about everybody having to call them to do everything. But that usually that same person is not empowering their staff. So they're complaining about the result of not empowering their staff. But when we are empowering, we're delegating authority and responsibility rather than task. And we're soliciting ideas from employees about how to achieve goals, how we can co-create this vision, how we can support them, and providing constructive feedback at regular intervals so that they're able to feel empowered, that they have the tools and the resources to make a difference, and also that they have enough of a checkpoint with you that they're on the right path and they're being steered in the right direction. And so I could go into more depth than that, but out of respect with time, I'm going to leave it there. Michelle, did you want to?
Yeah. So I just kind of want to, again, it's always underscoring what you just articulated. So you made a really good point in terms of how a leader can create a codependency, simply because when people are coming to them for the answer and they immediately give the answer, they're creating a dependency. So, I like to use, it's a term called the coach approach. So when I speak to my clients and they're having challenges because, they have people kind of lined up outside the door when they were in their office environment, or tons of emails looking for direction, it's ask open-ended questions to the person that's looking to get an answer, because with empowering others, it's asking them, so how might that solution be solved, or what is it that you can do? When you ask an open-ended question, it causes the person to think with the right creative side of their brain, and come up with answers on their own, and subsequently providing them with confidence that, with a little bit of trust in their own thinking abilities, they can come up with the answers. And when a manager is able to do that effectively and consistently, they're definitely well on their way of being an empowered leader. Yeah, good point. Number 10, integrity. Wow, this is a big one. I mean, I think this sort of goes hand in hand with humility to a certain extent, but integrity it's doing the right thing even when no one is watching. I remember reading that many, many years ago, and it really sort of struck a chord, because there are some shortcuts that we can take as individuals and as leaders, but integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching, and making sure that we have a set of values and morals that is our kind of guiding compass, and it's not always easy, but we then can model the right behavior and make sure that we're kind of contributing to a purpose-driven, values-driven culture.
So with these, I just want to pose the question with a few minutes that we can use to have discussion around these 10 principles that we have listed to servant leadership. Are there any of them that resonate with you, that you feel that either you do very well or that there's room for improvement in, that you want to share with the group? Should I go back over them?
No, I will. Let me just say, I was looking at them, and I think persuasiveness is something I need to work on. And that just means in terms of persuading other people to have more faith and faith in themselves, that they're able to do something that they think they can't.
Mm-hmm. So that's something that you're going to begin to practice more of, persuasiveness?
Well, I have an opportunity to speak at 2 different events coming up June and July. I'm stepping out of my comfort zone to do this because it's not what I do. I had to fall into the ambivert part of me. And I'm going to be speaking to some students that are going to be graduating. And then the other event is talking to people about time management. So I guess my concern is, am I going to be able to convince these people or persuade these people, these are the things you need to do, or these are the things that you should think about? I haven't really thought about that because I'm putting together my presentations now. But I'm going to think about, once I put them together, how persuasive they sound to me.
Mhm.
Will they sound the same?
Can I offer just some thoughts,
Yes.
Denise? So when we think about persuasiveness, it's not even from the reference of what we think they need. It's and it goes back to Amber's the within, the what's in it for me, and the what's in it for me is for the other person. It's when you, in your talk, when you're able to point to the value of what you're speaking to and the value and the benefits. That's being persuasive, is having other people recognize, if I do this, if I, whatever the action is, if I think this way, if I, take these actions, this is the benefit, this is the value that I'm going to derive. Because when they see what the value and the benefit of that is, then you're being persuasive because you're not telling them anything. You're sort of selling them on, or inviting them. I don't even like the term selling, but you're kind of inviting them to think about, what's the value and the benefit. Those are sort of the two anchors that I would encourage you wrap your talk around, because that in and of itself will have them say, okay, that's what's in it for me.
Mm-hmm. And also the stories that connect your own stories to what was in it for you, like how it affected you in your life, especially in talking to younger people. The best way is to show them, is to model, than to just tell them. And so by you telling stories, I think that's a part of you being able to model how effective it's been in your life, that connects them to the vision of what it could look like in their lives.
Yep.
That's why I'm here today. Thank you, ladies.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know I was going to get that advice, and that really helps me because I haven't started drafting anything yet.
Mm-hmm. And now look, now you're motivated because your brain is, I hope you can get off of this and like keep that ball rolling.
Oh yeah, because now you have me very focused.
Desi, were you going to say something?
Yeah, well, first I'm going to say good luck to Miss Vinegar. And I just feel like I have to say Vinegar because, like, your name's Vinegar. I have to say that. And so, sending good vibes out there. And I would say that for the most part, looking at empathy and humility and self-awareness and emotional intelligence and persuasiveness and trustworthiness and commitment to the growth of others and focus on building community, ability to empower others, and integrity, like these are, to me, I think all very good, like sort of mantras in leadership. And I think that I work actively to have a good balance with all of these, because I would say just in terms of like a lived experience as a Black woman in America, I think it's very difficult to have balance with these because, if I look at something like be committed to the growth of others, like I feel like that's what Black women do, but there's rarely a soft space for us to like land on when it comes to, folks looking out for our growth. And so to me, feel like I have to walk a very balanced line in wanting to be a good leader and being able to practice these deep levels of humility and wanting to be committed to the growth of others, when I feel like that is generally what I have been doing with very little reciprocity in that space. And so I would just, put that out there, that that people who are marginalized are oftentimes in these positions to have to do these things to survive, but are often not on the receiving end of, that kind of care or nurturing or commitment to, their growth. Mm-hmm. And so it's a balance. That's what I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. It's a balance between having humility and being able to speak up and say, hey, I have the chops to do this and you need to hire me to do it. And you need to pay me, and you need to pay me equitably to do it. Like that's a space that you have to stand in with real firm vigor. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't always look like humility to other
Mhm.
people.
Mhm. You're absolutely right. You're because there's kind of on a continuum, the act of speaking one value and worth may not be the ultimate definition of humility, right? That's not where humility needs to be placed when we need to stand up and speak out and sort of represent ourselves. But so no, you're absolutely right. It's not just an equal formula. The other point I just kind of want to make briefly, and I know we're minutes away from the bottom of the hour, is we're oftentimes as women of color up against a stereotype as well. You know, angry Black woman, the shows sometimes, these reality shows that depict women, you know, throwing a glass and overturning tables,
It
you know,
amplifies it.
don't contribute favorably to, you know, what the majority of women or women of color, what our mindset is. So yeah, we have a lot to be and do in order to kind of prove our worth.
And we have to put our oxygen mask on first. We can't help other people's, and we can't we can't be as much of the leader as we want to be if we aren't doing the work within ourselves first. Miss Donna Dalton, I saw that you had something to say, and just wanted to give you a couple of minutes to speak before we hop off. We know that it is the bottom of the hour, so if anyone has to go, we do respect your time and invite you to go ahead and exit if you need to, but thank you for being here. And after Donna's comment, we're going to wrap up just to respect everyone's time. But Donna, please.
I just wanted to say quickly, like what Desi said really brought a lot up. So in the leadership, like being trustworthy and commitment and focus on community and being there for others and having integrity is like, in all of it, it's having integrity. You know, what you said, doing what you know to do when no one's watching or before you're forced to do it. But the persuasiveness is what's really there for me. Like my leadership in focusing on others and building them and having that. But I'm that even in my silence, my quietness, not speaking up, where is my direction, my leadership, having my voice to say who I am, what I'm producing. It's almost as if, you know, I don't want to walk away from working for a company, or I don't want to, I'd rather establish my own, but to just be with someone and say, thank you for having trained and developed me in this area. And it's time for me to go and explore in my own field, rather than being with someone and being left with, oh, because of the pandemic, like there's no increases, no salary increases. I don't have to feel suppressed, but where am I in lifting? If I'm creating a sense of trustworthiness with others, if I'm developing others, why don't I step out and just take the leadership and create that for myself? So that's there. So that sense of not speaking, and thank you for calling on me because there's something that you saw, but just taking the steps to do what I say I'm going to do, what I'm giving to others, being secure with that to say it for myself. And that's where I'm stepping in, that being persuasive, not just for others, but for myself. I'm persuasive for others, but the internal persuasiveness.
So do I hear that you are setting some goals for yourself and moving forward?
Absolutely. And
in our closing, you want to share like a goal that you're setting for yourself so we can support you and be kind of accountability partners in you for that?
Well, just really being in the step. So what I've taken on, I'm going to show you in a second. I kind of just took a board and I put it in the corner in my space, and everything that I say I'm going to do on a daily basis, like getting it done. So when I'm not focused on it or not focused on my integrity is there for me. Because I said so, it is. Because I said it's a chair, that chair is going to fall because I said so. And that's what I want to be present to at each moment of my day, each moment in my life. This is a chair, and a chair is going to appear. And I'm doing that out there for others, but I'm not certain that that chair is falling for me. It's almost, you said in prayer, we pray, and we're praying sometimes for ourselves like it's not real, but I want my prayer and what I give to others to be present at all times.
And I want to encourage you to use the chair to sit in, to stand on, to prop things up. You use the tools that you have. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, Donna, I'm glad that you spoke up and shared that with us. Thank you. I'm sure that resonates with other people as well. Desi is cheering you on. All right, guys, it is 1:35, and as much as we would love to stay with you longer, we want to respect your time and the rest of the day. So just want to give you a highlight as to what's going to be happening in the next quarter. As you know, we've been doing these quarterly focuses, and so our leadership and ethos at work was our focus for this quarter. Next quarter, we're going to focus on, that's my drum roll, relationships. Ooh. That's good for the summertime, right? Relationships. So we're going to spend the next 3 sessions talking about relationships, and not just in our professional lives and our personal lives and what those look like and how we show up in those relationships the way that we want to, and how
our relationship with ourselves too.
And our relationship with ourselves. Exactly. Yeah. Because that's where it starts.
Mhm.
So please check out our schedule for the next few months and sign up to join us. As you know, this is something that we do every month, the first Wednesday from 12:30 to 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. Michelle and myself are both coaches, and we really just look to have this time with you that we can, be that space, that soft space, like Desi mentioned, for us, and that we know that you all show up and you support so many. And so we show up here to support you, and we enjoy it. And it's a labor of love, but we enjoy it. We are looking to expand it. If your organization could use conversations like this, Michelle and I are for hire. So let us know. You can always reach out to us at hello@39quartz.com. And Michelle, is there anything else that we need to say before closing? I think that's it.
No, I think you've covered it all.
All right, everyone. So you can share this recording. It's on Facebook, and it'll also be on YouTube. So look for the emails that we send. Please share these recordings with those who you think could use the knowledge and nuggets in them. And we hope to see you next month, and maybe a few new faces. So
Yeah, please tag others, tag one person. If we can give you an assignment and ask you to sort of take what you have gleaned from participating in today's or any of the others, share it with someone, and bring a friend, a colleague, encourage them to sign up. We want to increase the number of participants and just continue to spread this to more people.
Yes. All right, everyone. So have a fantastic rest of your week. As always, we appreciate your time, and we'll see you next month.
Enjoy June.
Bye.
Bye.